Welcome back to the channel, guys, for any of you that may be returning. Today, it's going to be a little different. Today we are in front of the reloading bench. That is one of the many things I do is I repurpose brass from my Freedom Seeds. Now, that being said, YouTube, in the chance that I get manually reviewed, this is for educational purposes, and that is all this is for. So, moving on, today I would like to dive into one of my other hobbies besides wrenching on things. And again, that's reloading. So, with that being said, I'm going to go through some of my processes, some how-tos, some things I've learned, and show you that you can get into this for fairly affordably. Playing with my little camera clicker here. I'm going to put that over there for now. Anyway, so when my dad and I started doing this, he already had a press and a few things in a box tucked away in the garage. So our initial investment was very minimal, which made it a lot easier to get into, of course. However, I've helped a couple of my buddies in the past get setups at home for just basic stuff. And the initial investment's a little bit much for some other hobbies. However, you don't need half the stuff we have. So we'll go through some of that today. Currently, what I'm working on is some precision loads for my deer hunting rifle. So I'm going a little more in depth than I did when I started. However, when I started, we had an old reloading manual, a press, a set of dies, the powder, and the other components. And I picked a load out of that book for my cartridge, and I got lucky with that rifle. It really liked it per my old standards. It was shooting a 1-inch group at 100 yards. Unfortunately, I don't have any pictures of that anymore. That was years ago when I started that, and I don't shoot that rifle a ton anymore. However, like I said, I'm doing some precision reloading stuff, but there are some things I can show you guys that are just basics, and we'll do this in a video series. So today, I'm going to show you how to set up a full-length sizing die. Which in the very base bones can be the very first thing you do if you absolutely want to. I recommend picking up a tumbler too, like a dry media tumbler, to clean your brass. If you're picking up range brass that is not yours, especially, it's going to be dirty. However, you don't have to if you're just using brass that you bought or your once fired brass. So we'll get into that today. We'll do some full-length sizing, and then we'll continue on. This is going to be a multi-video series. I don't know how many videos are going to be. I don't know how long they're going to be. But again, I just want to kind of show you guys one of my other hobbies besides wrenching on things. So we'll get right into it. Grab my little clicker here that hopefully I'll be better about not showing off in the future. But yeah, we'll jump right into full-length sizing, a couple pieces of brass, and we'll just move through the process. Okay, so here we are over at the other reloading bench. We have 3 benches in this room. They're all spread out, set up differently. So this is our single stage press bench. We have our dry media tumbler. We have a vise over here. I don't think it's on camera right now. Good idea to have one. But what we're going to be using currently for this episode is a set of calipers. I have some unfired, already sized brass, but it was improperly sized, and we'll get into that a little bit. And then this is what is called a shoulder bump gauge or a comparator body for checking the sizing of your brass, also known as your shoulder bump. We'll kind of explain that. This is something I just started doing, so that gets into things I've learned. I have 2 primers that came out of these, and then over here I have a piece of brass that was recently fired out of my rifle. So this is expanded. It still has a bad primer, an old primer in it. And so we will kind of go over that too. Again, I'm getting a little more in the precision game, so the steps are slightly different. And I'm not going to dive into all of that. If you really want to see some precision reloading techniques, go over to Little Crow Gunworks. They have an awesome page, and I believe his name is Tim. Don't quote me because I watch a ton of YouTube. However, he goes through an entire series of precision reloading. So you want to get the basics down and then go watch his stuff. That's what I've learned recently, was his method, and I really like it. So far, I'm seeing some great results. That being said, we're going to go through some full length sizing with a couple extra steps to get these pieces of brass correct. Then I'll get them reloaded later on, because these are some that I sold to a friend of mine. They would not feed into his rifle. They wouldn't even, excuse me, they wouldn't even feed into my rifle. So we'll get going. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my measuring tools set up. So right here is a Pittsburgh from Harbor Freight digital dial caliper. When I say digital dial caliper, it's just a digital set of calipers. A dial caliper is what I have laying here, and it is an analog version. I usually prefer these, mainly because you don't have any electronics. Like the other day when I would use this, the battery was dead. We didn't have any. So I had to resort back to Old Faithful. Now this one, there's no brand on it. It was made in China. They're accurate, but they're not going to be as precise as something like a micrometer. And you don't necessarily need micrometers for this level of loading. A simple digital caliper will do. Again, this one's from Harbor Freight. I don't know how much it costs. My dad bought it. It's their 6-inch dial caliper. Item number right here on the back is 62569. I don't even know if they sell this exact model anymore. We've had it for a few years. Anyway, so initially, we're going to open the caliper slide up. It automatically turns itself on. Don't need to worry about zeroing right now, because we're going to attach this comparator to it. So it has a slot here on the top, a little screw to tighten down. And this slides onto the top blade or bottom blade. I prefer the top. So the way I do this to make sure it's square and seated completely is I hold it there with my left hand. With my right hand, I run the thumb wheel up so it's touching, kind of give it some pressure, wiggle it, kind of make sure there's a wider spot on these calipers, make sure it's completely on that, and then I just hold pressure, and I look here, and I look on the back, make sure that it's touching all the way across, so it's nice and square and plumb to the caliper blade. Now we're just going to tighten the thumb screw down. You don't have to reef on it, but I like to get it as tight as I can by hand. You don't want that moving around. So then at that point, we're going to pull the caliper away, close it back again, and put a little bit of pressure on it, but something that you're going to, that just feels natural. I don't like doing it to where it just touches and stopping, because as you can see, I don't know if you can see, but it's fluctuating from 1.9955 to 1.9945. So that's a thousandth of a difference just by adding some pressure. And if you really reef on it, you can change that even more. So I'm just going to put a moderate pressure, and then I'm going to hit 0. Okay, now I just got to remember, every time I take a measurement, that's the amount of pressure I need to use. Because if I let go, there's 1/1000ths right there. And again, I don't know if you can see that. However, and this has 4 points after the decimal. You only use the first 3 numbers in reloading. Typically, that last 4th number, these aren't going to be that precise to be that accurate. So I don't use the 0.5 mark. Anyway, so we're going to take some measurements here, just to give you guys perspective. So this fired piece of brass, it still has the primer in it. I do not recommend measuring brass that still has a primer in it. That primer can be sticking out ever so much and throw your measurement off. So we'll use this Lee Universal decapping die. I went cheap, found this on Amazon for like $12. It is not a Lee, it is Chinese, but it works. So I'm gonna readjust camera here so you guys can see what I do, and then we'll do some depriming. Okay, so here we have our single stage press. It's already set up. I'm gonna undo it and then redo it real quick for you. So I'm just gonna thread this out almost all the way, doesn't really matter. And then take the shell holder off. Hey-o. We'll just do this. Dump that in the garbage. Put it back on. So this is an old press. I don't even know the model of it or any of that. It's an RCBS single stage press. They still make them. They're all slightly different, but they're all slightly the same. So to do this, you don't have to use the universal decapping die. I'm using this because it does not size the brass. And that's what I want to set my full length sizing die. And when I actually start sizing, I'll show you guys why you don't have to have this. Either way, minimum, you got to have a shell holder that fits your press. This one is, I believe, a Lee branded shell holder kit. Yeah. This is what they look like. A kit of them. Lee Universal shell holder set. Inside, it's got a bunch of them. They're all different sizes. And it will have a card that tells you what size shell holder for your cartridge. This set happens to be a number 2 shell holder for 30-06, which is what we're dealing with today. And this just snaps into the ram, okay? And again, you have your die. So to set it up initially, you put your shell holder on the ram, run your handle until your handle bottoms out, okay? And then you're gonna be looking in here as you thread this die in. You're gonna run that die down until it touches the top of the shell holder. Back lock ring off. Right there, it touched. We don't need to go tight because, especially for this die, you just need it to be close enough to knock the primer out. But I don't like hitting my die every time with the ram if I don't have to. So from touching, I'm gonna go, there's the flat spots. We're gonna give it just 1/2 turn out, and I can see there's daylight between the die and the ram. Then I'm gonna hold the body of the die and I'm gonna run this locking ring down to just help keep it from moving. And again, it doesn't have to be super tight for this process. We're just gonna leave it snug because that's all it is. This is supposed to be an adjustment right here for the actual decapping pin. However, that's where I learned, hey, duh, you bought this off of Amazon for super cheap, and it's a Milamumu, whatever brand. It's obviously from China. However, it works. So I have found that the decapping pin is hermetically sealed to this adjusting nut. So I just left it where it was at, kind of backed that out a little bit. It's not as tight as it was when I got it because I don't want to have the main body of that decapping pin bottoming out on my brass. It could ruin your primer pocket. So I've already got these two knocked out, but we'll show you guys one. Because this is universal decapping die, I don't need to use lube. Nothing touches other than the pin. So once you've got that set, it's as simple as you take your piece of brass, slide it into the shell holder, make sure it's pushed to the back of the shell holder. This little tray is to catch primers because it shoots them out of a slot here in the ram. And after that, you're going to run your handle to the bottom and back up. As long as your brass is pushed to the back of the shell holder and you make sure it's in the die body, you should be fine. It should line up. They're all machine parts at some extent. And you don't want to run your presses real slow and gentle. I'm not going to dive into why. Just know that you need to run them with a little bit of authority. Like that. Okay, so the primer is now popped out. It's laying right here. Sometimes they don't kick over into 1/2 of this tray. So there we go. That has no more primer. We can now measure it. Move those out of the way. So, back with our calipers that now I realize you probably can't see. But that's okay. We'll fix that. Okay, so you can see if I hold in the right spot, so we're just going to go like that. So, back at our dial calipers, we're going to turn them on. I'm going to put that pressure on it, make sure it's zeroed. So I have 0.0000, quad zeros. So that's good. We're then going to take our piece of fired brass, open our calipers up far enough it can fit. And then I like to put the brass neck up into the comparator body and hold it against it. Then I will bring my bottom caliper blade up to it. And you don't just take that measurement, okay? What you need to do is spin the brass while applying your pressure on it. And then once you see what it lands on and stays on consistently, you take your reading. So again, I'm not sure you guys will see those little numbers, but it is 2.0320. So 2 inches, 32 thousandths, okay? So that's a piece of fired brass. So that, I can tell you just from, I've already measured enough of my brass to know, that must not have been a very hot round. I believe it was probably the lightest one I shot. And so I know because of doing this enough with that rifle already, that's not fully expanded, which is okay. But it's 2.032. Now, I haven't measured these ones yet, so I don't even know where they're at. But they are, either the brass was not sized correctly or the bullets were not seated deep enough. So we'll check it right here. Okay, so 2.034. So it's only 2 thousandths different. However, I will look in my book here because I have my maximum shoulder bump already written down. And that's with a hot load I fired to make sure that the case expands all the way to the size of the chamber. So I'll check that right now and let you guys know what that measurement is. Okay, so I just looked at my book. My rifle, the fired size of brass is 2.035. So the one I just measured was only 1 thousandth set back. So that could have been why it wasn't feeding. It also could have been due to seating depth. These also might not have been all sized the exact same because I did a no-no and just reloaded whatever brass I had. I didn't sort it. If you're picking up range brass and you're buying different factory ammos and all sorts of things, when you're going to reload, take the extra step and the extra time. Sort your brass out by brand. You don't want to reload Winchester followed up by a Remington round followed up by Herters. I don't recommend using Herters brass. I've had issues with that. It does not seem to take pressure as well. So anyway, that one was only 1 thousandth shoulder bump for my rifle. And let's look at this one. Yeah, this one's way, way bigger. This one is 2.040. So that one is a lot larger. So this one needs to be sized for sure. So we'll size them. And we'll probably use this one to set up the seating die because it is the biggest. And we're just going to size them to what I have my shoulder bump set to. So we'll get started with that. Okay, so I grabbed my book, so I have it right here with me. If you're going to be reloading, even if you're not doing super crazy, get a little notebook or something to take notes in. I have all sorts of information wrote down in here so I can look back at it. It's something else I just started doing, but if you can get started right away doing that, you're better off. So over here we have a die set, RCBS 30-06. It says use shell holder number 3. Well, that's what it says on here, so that would be most likely the RCBS shell holder. Either way, as long as whatever brand shell holder you are using in their case or kit or whatever tells you it'll work for your cartridge, you should be fine there. So, in a normal kit like this, you're going to have 2 dies. You have your full-length sizing die with decapper, if it is a full-length die set, and you will have a bullet seater. So I keep this in this case and an Allen wrench that fits the lock rings. Okay, so since we're full-length sizing right now, I'm going to take this universal decapping die out of the press. And we're going to put it back in the case. Then we're going to grab our full-length sizing die, which I don't need to use for what I'm doing today for my bulk stuff I'm doing later, but that's okay. We're going to get it threaded in here anyway. So the way the box tells you to set this up is you run your ram all the way to the top of its stroke. And I don't even have the instructions in this box anymore because the way I do it now is completely different. But if I remember correctly, they want you to run it down until it touches. My lock ring's already set. However, until it touches, and then usually they want you to back it off a half turn or one full turn, and then you work your way up. However, I don't do it like that. Okay? So we are actually going to thread this out quite a ways. Actually, we're going to take it all the way out because I don't want to shoot past what I'm looking for. So we want our final size to be 2.033. That's what we're shooting for. Now, the reason I took the primers out of these with the universal is because we are going to take the internals out of this sizing die initially. So you're going to need a crescent wrench, which I had one laying up here the other day. I put them away. So we keep a drawer of tools, certain things. I don't need that big one. I'll use the small one. So crescent wrench, I recommend keeping around. Maybe a pair of pliers, flathead screwdriver to adjust your dies. So we're just going to break this lock nut free. Actually, it just unlocked the whole thing for me. And we're going to unthread this whole assembly out of there, okay? So right here you have a decapping pin and then an expander bushing. Okay, because you got to expand the mouth of your brass after it's been sized. So we're going to put that back in the box for now. So now we're left with just the body. This is what actually reshapes this piece of brass and reforms it to where it'll fit back to your chamber. Because when you fire this brass, it expands usually to meet the chamber walls. And then it will not feed again until you resize it. So we're just going to get this set in here and give it like one thread. Then we're going to take our piece of brass, put it in the shell holder all the way back. And we're just going to put it to the top of its stroke, handle all the way down, ram all the way up. And we're going to thread this in until you feel resistance. So now, because mine is already somewhat set up, I may not feel that resistance. Oh, right there. That is where it is already starting to contact the case, okay? So I'm going to just run it snug up against the case. And you can see how much mine was actually over-adjusted and I need to fix it anyway. So, we're then going to lower the ram, bring the handle up, and let's start with 1/4 turn in, okay? Now, I'm not going to mess with the lock ring at the moment just because I want to see what this is going to do. Okay, so then we're going to run it. That being said, I almost forgot you need to lube your cases. So I'm going to grab some oil and a lube pad. And I'll show you what that is. This is a RCBS case lube pad. Now, you don't necessarily have to use this. This just helps make sure you get the right amount of oil. So you open it up, and it's just a piece of foam in a little tray. And you oil this foam. Now, when they're new, they're dry, they're going to eat it a lot. This one still just soaks up oil. But just touching it, I have oil on my fingers, which might be enough. But if not, I've been using this Remington Rem oil in a spray can. I really like this stuff. I really like the fact that it's an aerosol. You can spray it on gun parts when you're cleaning. I use it to lube the ram. Anything that needs lubrication, this stuff works really well. And it works good as case lube as well. So I just open it up, give it a little shake. And just put a little bit of oil in there because it is going to soak it in. You don't want too much oil because what will happen is if you get too much oil in this dye, it's a liquid and liquids can't be compressed. So it'll actually build up and you'll start getting dents on your shoulder or on the side of the case right here. Not the end of the world. Just prefer not to have that. You can still fire them, and when you fire them again, it's going to re-expand, reshape it. No big deal. I just prefer to not have it have dents. So we're going to take our case that we're working with here, and we're just going to roll it across the pad. Okay, it has lube on it, and what you really want lube on is the base of the case right here, because that's what is going to be sized the most. Okay, but really you want it on the whole thing. Other than the neck and shoulders, you don't need any lube on those. And I typically will do every other case so that I don't over lube the cases. So again, we're going to put it in. We've already adjusted that, and we're going to run it with some authority, just like that. Knocked over something. Now we're going to measure it using our comparator body. Okay, and we'll see where we're at. Put it up in there, touch, spin, 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 2.040. Okay. That's not 2.033, so we're going to give it another quarter turn. Again, I do every other one I lube, run it again. Okay. Give it a spin. Okay, 2.40. Again. So, and what's going to happen is because you're resizing this, it's going to grow a little bit before it starts to shrink. So we'll give it another quarter turn. And actually right now, while I'm thinking about it and it's facing me, I am going to loosen my lock ring and run it down close, because when we get to that point, we want to be able to set it and lock it in. Also, what can happen, you'll run into, is you work a piece of brass enough times in quick succession, it'll work harden. So you might need to use another piece of brass. So we'll just kind of get it right there. Just touching. But we'll run our piece again, lube it, and run it. That was a little aggressive, but that's okay. The press can handle it. See, so now we're growing. We're at 2.041. It flashed 02, but we're going to go another quarter turn. Run it again. Spin it. 2.042. So we're still growing. Quarter turn. Lube it. Back of the show holder. Run it. Okay, we may be going back down. 2.040. Should be starting to get close. Quarter turn. Check it again. 2.040. Lube it. So another quarter turn. Run it. And this might take a while. Still not moving yet. That's okay. So let's check our other piece we have not ran through here yet. See what it's at. So this is actually, this piece is close enough. It's not going to need sized. So we're not going to worry about that piece. How about this piece? This one will need sized a little bit. See, this one needs 1 thou is all it needs. So we'll just keep working on this piece. Quarter turn. And again, this will take you a little while. I can see, okay, now we're really starting to grow. All right, so we're not coming down yet. I can see on the brass, it's starting to neck it down because of the fact we took the internals out. So let's go a full half turn. Quarter, half. Yeah, we're not even getting close to the show holder yet, so we're good. Still not setting that shoulder back yet. So lock ring was getting snug, so we'll go quarter, half. plus a little extra with tightening it down. Okay, that did something. I felt it in the press. Might have overdone it actually. Okay, now we are at 2.042. Okay. So now we're just going to do quarter turns at a time again. Lube it. Okay, so now that ridge has gotten down off of the neck. Let's see where we're at. 2.041. Let's run it again, another quarter turn. .040. Another quarter turn. .040. Okay, so since that one's not changing a lot, we're gonna size this piece that was fired recently. Because it only needs to go 1,000, so we want to make sure that a fresher piece of brass isn't going to move more. Oh, I didn't run that hard enough. But we'll see. 2.034. So that one grew a little, so we're getting there. Okay, we'll run the other one back again. I know I didn't change the die, but let's just see what it did after it sat a minute. Okay, drew 1,000th. Quarter turn, and that's part of reloading, is you just kind of got to work your way into something so you don't overdo it. Because if you overdo it, you aren't going backwards until you fire the brass again. Trying to go quick so I don't take too long here. Okay, we're still not getting close yet. Just gonna keep running through this. Yeah, I may have work hardened this piece already. There we go. Okay, 2.036. So now we're going to start going like 1/8 of a turn every time. And if the case still feels lubed, you don't need to lube it again. Just check it every time. .032. Okay, I don't know if, like, we'll see how, let me get over here where I can see here. Okay, where we got 2.032. So that piece is sized. Okay, so we're gonna put that right there for now. We'll see what this one was at again. I think this one still was undersized actually. Yeah, this one's undersized, that's okay. And then this one, 2.035. So in theory, this brass should size correctly. So put it in there, and we'll check it. So see that? Bring it back to y'all. So it oversized it by 0.02 because of the fact that first case was work hardened. Unfortunately, that will that will happen from time to time. That's okay, because I got to go through this with the rest of my fired brass anyway, so not a huge deal. But at that point, you're gonna lock this all down, okay? So you're gonna hold the body, bigger crescent wrench, and you're going to tighten just this lock nut. Holding the body in place If you need to, put a little Sharpie marker on or something, make sure it doesn't move, and get that tight. That will also adjust it, okay? So that's something to think about. Had I not hit the correct measurement yet, if you're getting really close, just start snugging this, and it will start bringing it down in very small increments. Once you have that snugged, you're going to tighten your Allen key. Now, something people don't realize with Allen wrenches, some people don't, they actually kind of have a torque gauge built in. One finger on the end of this Allen key, I'm going to tighten, and once it starts to flex, you're there. You're as tight as you need to go with that. So right there, it has some spring to it. Okay, now, because of what this is, I'm going to give it just a little more, but not too much to strip this out. This Allen set screw is a brass or some sort of brass alloy, so it's soft, and you can strip them really easy. So that is how you set up a full-length sizing die for the sizing. Then you're going to reinstall your internals, okay? So now this, the adjustment on this, really, this is what sets your primer pin. That's really all you're doing with this adjustment here. So you're going to run it down in there. It should have already been okay from the factory, but really, and I can take this out now, just grabbing the body. Oh man. Yep, I got that tight. So we're going to carefully try to loosen the entire thing without moving just the lock ring. There we go. So now this lock ring should be stuck in place. All you got to do next time is put it in and then snug it with the wrench, and you should be back to where you were left off. So technically, once you get this set, you should be fine. You still need to check it every time though, okay? So this adjustment, you're adjusting this here, which you want it to be about 3/16 of an inch protruding, no more than that, okay? Because you can damage and bend that decap pin. So to check that, we're going to take the comparator body off. We're going to close our calipers. We're going to zero them, okay? And this one you can zero it with them just closed, because we're going to be using our depth gauge on the bottom here. So to do that, and actually I'll show you an easier way, but this one being digital, we'll see. Yes, this one has fractions of an inch, which is really awesome. So we need 3/16 of an inch or less. So we're going to use this and the edge of this, okay, because that's our 0 point. So I'm going to just touch the pin to the side of the die body. Don't know if you guys can see that. And then I'm going to push that down until the pin of the die body touches the edge of the caliper. Right there. We're at 21/128 thousandths. Which, where is 3/16? It is smaller than 3/16. So that's all you really need. Another way you can use is the back plate to the top plate. And you just set it like that so you can get it square. There's your measurement. 25/128. Ooh, which is ever so slightly bigger than 3/16. But I haven't had any issues with that. So if I set it to 3/16, oh no, we're good. We're good. We are good. Okay. Either way, you just want that 3/16 or less to avoid damaging the pin. Okay. So that sizing die, we'll say for your scenario may be ready to go. Now, to find out what you want your shoulder bump to be, again, this is a little more precision than basic. However, it's easy enough to do. So you take your rifle out with some factory ammo or whatever, and you shoot some ammo. Factory ammo is good to use because it should be hot enough to expand the case all the way. You then use your comparator body, as I showed you, and you check to the shoulder, from the bottom of the case to the shoulder, what is the length of that. In my rifle's case, it was 2.035. Okay. So Then subtract 2 thousandths. So my preferred sized brass is 2.033. Because if you set this die, up the way the manufacturer tells you to, where you touch off and then pull it back however many turns, or you leave it touched off and you want cam over, however the manufacturer suggests, you're sizing that brass anywhere from 5 to 7 thousandths of an inch, sometimes more. So every time you fire, it has to grow that much. And you're just not getting longevity out of your brass that way. You can, but it will go bad faster. So yeah, that is, in a nutshell, how to set up a sizing die. Then you would take all your brass and run it through here. Now, that being said, once you set that up, you just take your brass with the primer in it and you run it, because that decapping pin will knock the primer out for you. So you do it all in one step. Okay? So then the next step we'll get into would be trimming your brass. And that will probably be part 2. So part 2 will be brass trimming, and we'll go through that, kind of how to do it, what to look for, and how to set the trimmer up, which I'm not actually going to do because I have it set for my rifle right now, and so I need that. But I'll still show you the way you do it. Thanks for watching, guys. Leave me a comment down in the comments. Give me some suggestions. What can I do better? What did you like? What did you not like? Leave me a thumbs up. If you so wish, if you enjoyed the video, you find it helpful, consider subscribing. It's free. It's going to help motivate me to keep putting videos out, that's for sure, because I tell you what, when I do a video, a lot of people don't realize what it takes to put something together like this. If I don't get a lot of viewership or subscribers, and I'm not saying a ton, I'm just saying if there's not people that are actively showing me they're watching it, it makes it really hard for me to continue doing this. Either way, please do so. Like I said, give me a comment. What do you want to see? What do you want to know? If you're interested in something, or you had a question on something that I didn't cover, shoot it in the comments. Thanks, guys, for watching, and we'll see you next week.